Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today, we're really going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about how to stack the odds in your favor. Holy schmoly, who doesn't like that idea? And so please join me in welcoming Mark Lachance to our program today. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing phenomenal, Deb. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. I love it. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you and then we will jump in. So Mark Lachance is a serial entrepreneur, a strategic thinker, and an investor. He is a renowned figure in the business world, one who possesses a deep understanding of blitzscaling companies. Having owned and operated several businesses that have experienced hypergrowth through creative business development and lead generation, he is a master of sales and marketing and continues to apply and grow his expertise through current projects. He is the CEO and lead investor of Maxi Media Inc., one of the largest TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, and Google display network performance marketing agencies in the world. Currently, Maxi Media is the #1 advertiser in terms of monthly spend on TikTok in Canada and in the top 10 in North America. He is also the author of The Lucky Formula, How to Stack the Odds in Your Favor to Cash In on Your Success. So again, Mark, welcome.
Wow, that was an awesome introduction. Thank you very much.
It's always fun when we have our bios read, right? We're like, ooh, we like those people. So, I always like to know a little bit more about my guests. And I was able to peruse your book. And the first part of it, you talk about what you have done. And it's been quite the journey. And I loved reading about it. But, tell us a little bit more about how it is that you've got to where you are today.
Well, the beginning of the book, like you said, it talks a lot about what I did, but it actually starts with my biggest mega colossal failure.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a wonderful real estate deal that I got into in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And Deb, I think we're in the age group that we remember 2007, 2008,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
and the real estate crash. So I got into a real estate deal. And as most people that got into real estate deals in 2006, they experienced a mega crash. And,
Mm-hmm.
I just happened that I went all in on a deal.
Oh.
So I had, in 2001, I actually moved to Canada
Mm-hmm.
and got equity in a company. So it was myself and two others.
Mm-hmm.
And we started a company called Pivotal Payments, and we
Mm-hmm.
grew that thing, from basically 3 people all the way up to 250.
Yeah, because real estate, holy schmoly, that was the market to be in at that time.
That's right. But I'm saying I started, so kind of the precursor of the beginning of that story is I started a business 2001 to 2006 and sold my shares for several million,
Mm-hmm.
and then took the winnings from that enterprise and rolled it all into real estate in 2007. So it's not just started in 2006, ended 2006,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't a good timing to do that. But I will tell you, Deb, that there are red flags that go up
Mm-hmm.
every so often, and if you don't pay attention to those
Right.
red flags, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Right.
didn't do it.
Yeah. And you talk a lot about that in your book where, there were times, and you're right, we've all had those moments where we've thought, maybe it's too good to be true, or, something just doesn't quite add up. But usually the person trying to sell us on whatever this is good enough that they convince us to ignore that. And I don't think it ever works out right.
Well, your gut feel, I got to tell you this, your
Mhm.
gut pretty much always knows.
Mhm.
And I was at a conference this weekend. It was actually a meditation retreat,
Mhm.
and it teaches you a lot to, this particular event teaches you how to use your intuition, use your gut feel,
Mhm.
and use sort of energy and
Right.
to make decisions, which
Mhm.
the gut always knows.
Mhm.
And I knew at that time, especially, I should have known, or I should have looked at the cues when a credit card declines, when your business partner credit card declines. That should be your cue that this guy doesn't have the money he
Right.
said he has. So
Mhm, mhm. Oh, yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
I worked for a company one time where we were somewhere and, they paid for a meal and they came back, and so they looked at me and I'm like, I'm your employee. Why is it you think I'm gonna pay for this?" And of course I had to because they couldn't. And yeah, I left shortly after. It was like, "No, no, no."
Exactly. So you understand, you went through it. But
Right.
the key is, though, looking at those red flags and
Mhm.
actually, giving them value and
Mhm.
taking action on
Right.
those red
Mhm.
flags, which I didn't do.
Right.
Anyway,
There's always due diligence that we should be doing. And so sometimes it's like, okay, well, I'm not comfortable with this, and you just need it explained more. And then, some things work out. But yeah, our gut is going, no, for a reason.
that's right. Exactly.
So,
You got it.
but yeah, so you've done, several large business enterprises. And and now you've ended up at Maxi Media. Just tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, so from the real estate colossal failure, you learn a lot. You learn a ton about
Mhm.
yourself. You learn how to lead. So
Mhm.
from there, I went to look. You learn not only how to lead, but how to take advantage of opportunities,
Mhm.
to not go all in without due
Mhm.
diligence. So you learn a ton of things. But anyway, so from there, I had to get back into a business that I understood, which was payments. And then
Mhm.
I got the opportunity to get equity in a company, but unfortunately I didn't have any money. I didn't, that
Mm.
real estate game
Mhm.
almost took me to
Yeah.
bankruptcy,
Mhm.
took me to anxiety, depression. Like, that
Mhm.
was the worst, darkest period of my life.
Mhm.
But I somehow pulled out of it and somehow was able to get equity in the company
Mhm.
and raise capital to buy that equity, which
Mm.
was a phenomenal story
Mhm.
in and of itself.
Mhm.
And then, we had a successful exit there, grew the company from zero to about 215, or sorry, one person, which was myself,
Mhm.
to about 215 awesome employees,
Mhm.
and exited in 2016. And then, as most entrepreneurs, Deb, that you interview, they can't sit around too long. So I
Right.
was kind of twiddling my thumb. And then
Mhm.
I was actually, my wife is running a nutrition and fitness center,
Mm.
and I was doing the Facebook media buying on that. And
Mhm.
I don't think I was good at it. I mean, my numbers were actually very good, but I
Mhm.
didn't think I was that great. So I was like, listen, I have to get somebody to do this for me.
Mhm.
So after, testing, about 6, 7 different people who couldn't beat my numbers, finally this gentleman walks through the door who killed my numbers. So I
Mhm.
was like,
I mean,
and then
oh. Mhm.
exactly, something going on here. Young guy, pretty intelligent, very intelligent.
Mhm.
And from there on, struck up a relationship,
Mhm.
struck up trust, and out of that spawned Maxi Media Inc. And so we started that in 2018,
Mhm.
and all the way, actually 2017, all the way to today is 2022. So it's about
Mhm.
5 years in the game.
Mhm.
And all the success that you read in the beginning,
Mhm.
number one spender on TikTok in Canada, top 10 in the US, and got a pretty large team. So now we have
Mhm.
just about 300 awesome rock stars on
Wow.
our team, and it's
Mhm.
going pretty well. Can't
I
complain.
love it. And social media advertising is confusing, to say the least. And so that's where it's nice to know that you can hire somebody to do it for you. And it's for the most part, if you want your business to be noticed, to really be noticed, you're going to have to advertise. And I think that's kind of a bitter pill for many people to swallow, because I've had, we do social media for folks. We don't typically do too much advertising because it is such a specialty. But you have people who come up, they probably tell this to you too. I'm not going to have a website because I have a Facebook business page. And it's like, oh no, danger, danger. you know? and and they don't realize that very few people actually see what they post for many reasons, not the least of which are the algorithms, because the platforms want you to advertise. So
It wasn't like that, Deb. Back
right.
in
Oh, I
2015,
know.
2016. I mean, I used
Hmm.
to post something on my business page
Hmm.
and literally get
Right.
hundreds of likes, and
Hmm.
now it's like trickles in.
Right. You get crickets. And yeah, sometimes I think even Facebook will say 5%.
Less than that.
and that's probably generous. That's if you've had a post that's just knock them out of the park, or you're a huge brand. And because they also play the little game of, okay, well, if you're a big advertiser, they will just show your regular posts more often also. And so it's interesting, but it is still one of the best places for people to find consumers, clients, customers, whatever we want to call them. And so, quickly, do you have just some tips for folks on, really what they should be thinking about?
Well, I think you have to be ubiquitous, right? So you have,
Mhm.
I believe that you have to be everywhere all the time. And yes, it's tough if let's say you're a one man show, you have
Mhm.
a small organization and you have to wear many hats.
Mhm.
But look, like you said, marketing is everything and telling your
Mhm.
story is everything and
Mhm.
getting the word out is everything. So if
Mhm.
people don't know about you, nobody's going to come see you. I mean, there's so
Mhm.
much noise out there.
Right.
So you've got to pick the platform that works well with you. Not everybody
Mhm.
can dance on TikTok. I certainly can't.
Yeah, I
And
don't even have a TikTok account because I know that I would go squirrel and I would just be there forever.
well, I have about 3 followers on TikTok, but the key is, look, if you don't understand or you don't know how to do something, then bring somebody else in, be
Mhm.
it a
Right.
partner or somebody that you hire
Mhm.
to help you with with that particular platform. Like,
Mhm.
so for example, we have right now, I know, we have about 150 creators,
Mhm.
so they're creating videos all day
Mhm.
long. And then we've got also, about 50 media buyers that are buying
Mhm.
media on certain platforms. So
Right.
if you don't know how to do something, like, I'm not a great media buyer at all,
Mhm.
and I'm not a great creator at all. So I'd prefer to put people in the
Mhm.
place that do it way better than I do.
Right.
And I call that, if you have a second, I talk about, in my book, I talk about
Mhm.
the entrepreneur's dilemma.
Mhm.
So then I guess I have a question for you, Deb. Why do you think that businesses stay small? What would your answer to that be?
They think small.
Okay, that's excellent answer, number one. And number two, what else?
They don't take chances.
Excellent. And also, I call it the entrepreneur's dilemma. They think small, they
Mhm.
don't take chances, plus they have to do everything.
Right.
So, for
Mhm.
example, it's almost like an ego problem. So,
Mhm. Yeah,
you
I'm the
know,
boss. I should do it all.
I'm the boss. I have to know what's going on in
Mhm.
legal, accounting,
Mhm.
marketing, sales, customer service, compliance, blah, blah. You go down the list. Well, if you
Mhm.
have to do everything, you can't do anything,
Right.
is
Mhm.
basically the point. So the way you scale a business
Mhm.
is you stay in your lane on what you love to do. You can't do that in the beginning. I mean, it's
Right.
unfortunate you
Mhm.
can't do it in the beginning, but as you grow,
Mhm.
you start giving away the
Mhm.
tasks that
Right.
you don't want to do or
Yeah,
you're not
there's
good
that
at.
little word called delegate.
There you go. Delegate.
Mhm.
So that's how you grow a business. So
Mhm.
you start delegating the things that, forget about that you don't want to do, but the things you're not good at,
Mhm.
because you're not good at everything.
Right.
Right. I mean, I'm not a great media buyer. I'm not a
Mhm.
great, like I said, creator. I'm not a
Mhm.
great writer. I'm not,
Mhm.
I mean, what am I? I'm great at casting vision, selling,
Mhm.
motivating. So that's what
Mhm.
I do, and I do best. And I don't do any of the other stuff. Right. So that's kind of a tip for you,
Right.
Deb.
Right. And it is one of those things where, as the business owner, we think we have to do it all. And you're right. At the start, you do because you don't have the money to go pay somebody else. But I kind of operate on the 15-minute rule. If it's something that's not directly what I am the one supposed to be doing, if it's going to take me more than 15 minutes, it's outsourced.
That's a good idea.
And so it's and things like
The
I love.
15-minute rule. Can I use that?
You can. And so things like my websites, I love tinkering on websites. I find it fun. I like finding new widgets and then I break them. And then I'm like, oh, but yeah, if it's going to take me but my business is not website design. So when I spend more than 15 minutes on my website, that's a waste of my time. And so the trick is, of course, to start figuring it out. Okay, if I could have been doing X, for that time period, how much did I lose by tinkering on my website? And usually it's enough that you can outsource.
I agree with that. That's a great assessment. Great way
Mhm.
to look at it.
Yeah.
I like that 15-minute. I have to tell you,
Yeah,
Deb. I
you
am
know,
going to take that. Do I owe
you
you?
may, you
Do
may
I owe
feel
you any
free.
royalties on that?
You can, send me a piece of chocolate every once in a while. But 15 minutes really is kind of a good gauge because, there's lots of little tasks that we can just do and get done really quickly. But yeah, if it's more than about 15 minutes, outsource it.
Good. Thank you very much.
Yay! I like it when it's this mutual club. So, I mentioned in your bio, and it just totally threw me, but I didn't look it up because I wanted you to explain it. Blitz scaling. What the heck is that?
Well, I don't know if you know who Reid Hoffman is, but he is the founder of LinkedIn,
Mhm,
and he wrote the book with, I think it's Chris Ye, with called Blitzscaling.
mhm,
And so I read that about, I think it was about 3 years ago, and I'm like,
mhm,
wow, I've done that twice already.
mhm,
And that's basically taking it was written for Silicon Valley, right? It was
mhm.
written for companies that get massive injections of capital
Right.
from private
Mhm,
equity or
mhm,
hedge funds.
mhm,
But I kind of put my twist on it, where I never got big funding from anybody. I always funded my own companies and
mhm,
started from bootstrapping.
mhm,
So my definition of blitzscaling is taking every single penny of profit and rolling it back into growth,
mhm,
rolling it back into growth. So,
mhm,
you're bootstrapping, and then, you're only taking out the bare minimum to live. You put it back in, and
mhm.
you're hiring and growing quickly.
Right.
And what is that? You're going to make mistakes doing it, but you're going to grow very quickly.
Mhm,
Right. So you're forgiving, or you're forgoing lifestyle today for lifestyle tomorrow, which is a
mhm,
much greater future.
mhm,
So that's blitzscaling. So we took, the most recent, we took Maxi Media from 2 people all the way to over 300 in a
mhm.
span of about 4 years.
Wow.
Right. Because again, we took every penny of
Mhm,
profit and rolled it back into hiring, and
mhm,
hired and hired and hired. You hire
mhm,
fast. You're going to make mistakes.
mhm,
Fire's going to be burning, but you let them burn and then you fix them later.
mhm,
So that's basically blitzscaling. That's getting a massive North Star target and going for it, and just
mhm,
going for it with almost reckless abandon.
mhm.
So that's my definition of blitzscaling.
I love it. So, how can the non-tech people who are getting the millions of dollars in venture capital, how do you kind of mentioned how people should use it, but let's go into that a little bit more deeply because things like obviously the first step is you start hiring some of those people, your CMOs, your CFOs, your HR folks. Those are probably some of the first people you need to hire.
Actually, I went the other way.
Ah.
I went the other way. I brought in, so we brought in media buyers first.
Okay.
So again, you're gonna have to wear many hats in the beginning.
Hmm.
So I was the HR person, I
Hmm.
was the CMO, I was the CFO, I was the
Hmm.
CEO. But you want to bring in your revenue generators first,
Hmm.
right? Because the CFO and a CMO, you can argue that they're revenue generators, but later, not in the beginning,
Hmm.
right? Because the CFO, they're just going to count your pennies,
Right.
right? So I can do that
And they're going
myself.
to tell you can't do that.
Exactly. So you don't want people telling you can't do something.
Hmm.
You don't want somebody in HR telling you can't do something,
Hmm.
or bring on that person because of
Hmm.
this reason or that reason or that. So anyway, the way I went about it is I brought in revenue generation, be it, some companies it's salespeople, other companies it's
Hmm.
media buyers, other companies it's business development people.
Hmm.
So you bring in the people that bring in the money first.
Hmm.
Then, when you're at a certain, let's say, size, then you bring in the support staff, and you're going to know when that
Okay.
is, when things are falling through the cracks, left,
Hmm.
right, and center. That's when you need support.
That's when you're like, oh, okay, no, miss that HR
Exactly.
minefield. Hmm.
Exactly. So, I mean, we just brought in just about a year and a half ago, we just brought
Hmm.
in let's call it CFO light. I was the
Hmm.
CFO all the way up until then. And then, things were just falling through the cracks.
Hmm.
You know when it's time.
Right.
But the key is to focus on building revenue. That's the
Hmm.
key.
So, do you hire as employees or do you hire them as consultants and part-timers?
We hired both.
Okay.
So, I mean, I like to I call it undervalued assets.
Hmm.
So the company grew up in Montreal, and we found, and everybody feel free to steal my idea. So we found, I'll call it the employee hack. So in Montreal, you have Montreal, Canada, you've got many schools that teach, that are English universities like
Hmm.
McGill University or Concordia.
Hmm.
But a funny thing is that it's a French province,
Right.
and the
Hmm. The
students that are
signage,
graduating,
everything is in French.
exactly. So the students graduating can't get a job. because they're Anglophones, but they can't get a job. So if you give them an opportunity to work in an English environment, you're going to have some high quality talent for a reasonable price. And then as they start educating themselves and getting better and better, then you bring them up into the ranks. But you want to hire the smartest people possible for the best price possible.
Right.
So we've got teams all over the world. So started in Montreal, and we've got a big team in the Philippines, a few people from Pakistan, India, all over South America, lots. So we have a big team in Mexico. Actually, this is funny. We were on our weekly leadership call, and one of our leaders is in Mexico, in Tulum, and she actually had a group over at her place from Mexico, and I was shocked. I didn't really know we had that many people in Mexico on the team. So it's pretty cool.
Right. And I mean, you built this business up during the pandemic. So I'm assuming that many, if not most, of your employees are virtual and work from home type of folks?
Well, we were all actually, so in March of 2020, on March 14th of 2020.
I know, right? When you were told, go home.
That was March 14th. We were 100% in the office, right? So we had, at that time, this is what, about 2 years ago now, a little over 2. We had, how many people? I want to say 35, all in the office. We had about 6,000 square foot. And then as the pandemic broke, we found that our revenues were going like this. Pandemic, they were going like this. And we found out we didn't have the right management team to manage a totally remote staff. So we had to make some changes. And then all of a sudden, we're all remote now. I mean, it just morphed into what was, I loved going to the office and having people, the sort of people touch.
Right.
And then we found out that, we could run this thing remotely. And I could live in Florida and have a company that's based in Montreal, but around the world. So it's remote.
Well, and, I think, we've obviously seen that so many workers have said they prefer working from home. No commute. And I tell people, I don't have to put shoes on. But we also miss that in-person type of things, where you just pop into somebody's office, you're at the coffee machine, all of that stuff. So how do you deal with, missing it is socialization, but there's also a lot of business that gets done during that time.
Well, I tell you what I miss, I have to tell you, is the whiteboard sessions. Because the whiteboard, I have a whiteboard there, but I hardly use it. But in my office, I would have, on a recurring basis, I would have my chief operating officer in, I would have our head of media buying, head of, and we'd whiteboard out the plans. And I just don't have that. I have, instead, I'm on my desk, I'm looking at my desk right here. I have pieces of paper that take the place of the whiteboard.
Right.
So,
and they can't see it. That's the hard part.
That's right. Exactly. That is the difficult part. So you have to, you have to send out more memos. You have to have more conference calls instead of, meaning Zoom calls like this, instead of, the face-to-face. I mean, it can be done. It's different. It's more difficult. And then you have to schedule face-to-face time to actually meet your leaders every now and then.
Right.
It is difficult though, but it can be overcome, and it can be, a positive thing. You can have people all over the world that are phenomenal.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think that is one of the things that people really did discover was, they can have employees, consultants, whatever they are, around the world. We had done virtual for years. I mean, I have never met the producer of my podcast in person. She's up in Jersey. I'm down in Atlanta. We've never met in person. We've worked together for, over 4 years. And so we've done the virtual thing, but it is difficult when, especially when people were used to being together and then weren't. I think that was probably one of the hardest things that people really had to adapt to.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, I had to adapt to that. And especially I think in the US, we were talking about this before, but you were allowed to go back to your office. Like, we were not allowed to go in our office. We were essentially locked out. I mean, I snuck in because I had to go to the office, but but nobody else was there. I was the only one there. And I'm like, this is not fun.
Yeah.
So we really had to adapt there. We had to adapt. It was no choice. I mean, it's either, adapt or die, which is basically this, any businesses like that all the time, adapt or die.
Yeah.
So,
and it seems like hybrid doesn't work as well as people thought it would. I was talking to someone who fairly early on was hybrid. And she was in the office Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then home Tuesday, Thursday, which to me, that just seemed very confusing. But she said, no matter where she was, that file she needed was in the other location. And she said, you do as much as you can in the cloud, but it's like your piece of paper on your desk. We still are writing notes. We're still doodling. We're doing all of those things.
That's funny. No matter where you are, the file's in the other office.
Yeah. And she said it was just, and so I think she actually switched and told him, I can't do this every other. I'll do 3 and 2, but let's bunch them together. And she said, because then that was.
I have a question on that. So I was a question or maybe a comment. I was speaking to one of our bankers, and he was saying that, they're downtown Montreal. And he was saying that, more than, 3/4 of the staff works out of the house, but they still have the huge office space. Like what's going to happen to corporate office space at some point? There's got to be a complete adjustment at some point. So let's see.
Yeah. I mean, it is definitely one of those markets that is like, we don't know what's going to happen. So not only for the businesses that leased who went, ooh, we don't need 6,000 square feet anymore. Maybe we need, 1,000 for when people come in and things like that. But then of course you've got the businesses that own, what do they do when all of a sudden they're paying for, all of this space that, could be a hockey arena, because there's nobody in there.
How did you know I was a hockey fan?
I read your book.
Oh, there it is.
You've got 2 brothers that play. See, plus I am from Colorado, and so I do have to say, go Avs.
By the way. You just won the Stanley Cup. Look at that.
I know, but it's I've been a hockey fan for many years, and just absolutely love it. And it's
can really... I show you something? Can I show you something?
Yes.
Hang on one second. Okay.
So for those of you who are listening, he's gone to go get something. I have absolutely no idea what it is.
So there's the
my
Stanley
gosh,
Cup.
He's got the Stanley Cup. How'd you get the Stanley Cup?
You know what that is, don't you?
That is the cup, of course.
There you go.
Yes.
It's not the real one though, Deb. It's the replica of the one I'm going to be holding in 4 to 5 years as owner of the Florida Panthers. That's what that is.
Oh yeah, they're not Avs fans at the moment. But it was interesting reading your book, because I think, and it's funny, I've interviewed several people recently that are, athletes or former athletes, and they do have a different thought process. And I know a big part of it is because, especially if you started playing young, that the whole team mentality is what you were brought up in. Even if you were the team captain, you've now transitioned into business owner, all of those things. And I think it's just a different mentality as to, you really do think about, okay, how are we going to be strategic about having everybody involved?
Yeah, no, I agree with that, because look, let me kind of answer that in a different way, or comment on that in a different way. I love hiring athletes as employees, because they have that, again, like you said, the team background. They have that winning attitude. They have that, desire to score the next goal or win the next game, or whatever it is. So I think, I don't know if that kind of answers your question or answers your comment, but that's kind of what I look for. And I love, the leaders being athletes, like our chief operating officer. He's an almost professional water polo player. And you show up differently, right? So if all those years you've gone to the gym or the dojo or the ice rink or the field, and you wanted to win there, you don't have that opportunity to win there. Now you want to win, in the business world. So I hope that answers your question.
It does, and because I do think, and I do think that it is different with team versus individual sports. Because an individual sport, I mean, granted, they still had to have their team, they had their coaches, they had their support people, all of those things. But, it was one of those things where, if you were on a true team, you knew you had to rely on other people. You knew you had to lead them, all sorts of things. And so I think it is very interesting.
Well, I see that dichotomy so my kids do judo. And I know a lot of, and I actually am a blue belt in jujitsu right now. So
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that the, let's say the senseis or the dojo owners think a lot differently than, you know, somebody that was in, you know, on a team sport.
Right.
So for example, I'll give Nick a plug right here. Nick Tritton, who was a two-time Olympian in for the Canadian judo team. He's a good friend of mine, but Nick thinks a lot differently than somebody that was, you know, played on a hockey team, a lot differently. You know, so it's, you know, look, if you're a leader of different types of people like that, you just have to know how to manage different types of personalities. And, but I do say that individual athletes, they've got a you know, a certain drive that's a little bit different than a team player.
Right.
So, and they've got their anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. And it is, you know, individual. I mean, you know, they're kind of an entrepreneur themselves.
That's a good point.
You know, but it's interesting. So I still do a lot of stuff with University of Colorado, which is where I'm, you know, where I went to school. And I was contacted last week by someone from the athletic department. And they said, hey, you know, we've got one of our athletes. He's graduated. He's from Atlanta. He's moved back. Would you talk to him? Sure. You know, and so, you know, I told him, I said, you know, here's my, you know, he can text me, he can call me, he can email me. He contacted me through LinkedIn. And immediately I was impressed by that, because that meant he was already thinking from a business perspective. You know, and it was just, you know, his profile needs work, obviously. I mean, you know, he's 23, 24 years old. And, you know, a lot of focus in there on D1 athlete. But, you know, the thing that, and I'm, you know, I haven't met him or talked with him in person yet. We're still trying to get that set up. But, you know, there's so many things that an athlete does that do transition to business, you know, leadership, all sorts of things. But it is tough for an athlete to all of a sudden, especially if you were an elite athlete and now you're just one of the dudes in the office, you know, that gets a little bit difficult.
Well, I tell you what, I observed that. You read the book. Obviously, I was a sports agent, so I represented professional hockey players. And it's funny, then the second they retire, they almost become irrelevant. It's crazy. It's like,
unless they are a major name.
Exactly. Because when you're, let's say, when you're an athlete, or when you're on the team. So I'll give my brother, for example, he's on the New York Islanders, and go to dinner, you're signing autographs. The minute you retire, you get sort of pushed to the
people
back.
Are like, nope, you don't matter anymore.
Exactly. I've never, I mean, and that's why a lot of athletes go through, you know, they go through depression after they retire. Both of my brothers had, you know, semi-depression, and, you know, they work their way out of it. But most athletes go through that sort of, you know, you're not with the team any longer. You're not, you know, the center of attention. You're not, you know,
you're not having things given to you.
That, but you're also not competing for the win. So now you have to really redevelop your life, really.
You know, and yeah, it's just, I don't know how we got on this, but we were talking about Office Space, and then we evolved into talking about hockey. But but yeah, I mean, it is a challenge anytime you're trying to find people who work for you. You know, I've talked to others who have said they will hire an athlete immediately, because they know that they've got that mentality to you know, to say, okay, you know, we need you at 6 a.m. Well, they're used to doing workouts at 6 a.m. You know, as opposed to a regular college student that goes noon. I'll start working at noon. You know?
Well, I've had some athletes that haven't worked out either. So
I mean, you know, it's just, it's like with anything, you've got great players, you know, great players that become great employees, and, you know, some that don't. And then, you know, you've got other people that, you know, that they come out of college, or, you know, have been with another business, and you're like, you know, yes or no. And, you know, and that is, of course, the challenge to the small business owner when they are transitioning into that point where they have to hire people.
That's right.
You know, to even figure out what qualifications and all of those things are we looking for in somebody.
Well, I'll tell you what, the first qualification is work ethic. That's number one. Right. Work ethic, trustworthiness, you know, their ability to go the extra mile. If they're going to, you know, they're going to show up exactly at 9 o'clock and leave at 5 o'clock on the button, but, you know, the job's not done yet. So It's funny that I'm going to give another gentleman a plug, Howard Getson. He's in my strategic coach group, and this guy's a genius, absolute genius. But he says all of his hires, he takes a full day. Like he vets them over a full day interview, face to face.
Wow.
So I mean, you can't do that with every employee. You can't do that with somebody in customer service, but you can do that with a senior executive. You can't do that with your next head of business development. And actually, I was like, I thought he was a bit crazy at first, but now I see the wisdom, because I've made many mistakes, in senior management that I probably would not have made had I spent a full day. Or spent,
somebody interviews well, they look good on paper. Okay.
Exactly. I mean, but did you do the background check? Did you call the references? Did you, call 15 other people that they may know and you can find on LinkedIn? And if you didn't do that, then, you might make a mistake, right? So I've made those mistakes, and I'm going to take Howard's advice here and spend the full, the full day or the full 12 hours of interview process.
Right. And obviously that's more difficult in this virtual world, but it can still be worked out. We're back to being able to travel.
That's right.
And so you bring them in, and you just, it's kind of like take your kid to work day.
Actually, that's pretty interesting, because I remember I was listening to a Tim Ferriss podcast, and I forget who he interviewed. I mean, this is kind of a different story, but this gentleman, every single acquisition he would make, he would actually, or investment he would make, in companies, he would bring those people to his sort of vacation home and spend the weekend. I know it maybe doesn't translate on hiring, again, somebody in customer service, but get them out of the office. Get them, maybe you go for a hike or go for a walk or go skiing or go golfing or something like that. And you're going to see a different side of people that you would normally sitting in a 15, 20-minute interview.
Right.
So I think the message is, the more time you take on hiring, the better, the better staff you're going to have, and the less turnover you're going to have. Turnover costs money, as you know. Right?
Yeah. And it might take you a little bit longer, but again, it's better than hiring the wrong person and having to start over.
That's right. No, you're exactly right. And when you're blitzscaling, it's tough to do what we're suggesting here, because blitzscaling is basically throwing enough doo-doo against the wall and seeing what sticks. Really is what it is. To be honest with you. But once you're at a certain scale and you want to grow incrementally, I think you can do that. I know you can do that, because that's what I'm doing right now, and it works. So,
right. And it might not be that you're spending the day with them, but their manager spends the day with them,
exactly.
And things like that, because that is part of it too, is how are they going to blend in with the team?
Exactly.
And so it's, hiring right now is just an interesting prospect. I mean, when you're talking about so many people who in the last, 2.5 years have decided they're going to work differently, and it's just, it's a challenge. And of course the challenge is, once you've got those good people, how the heck do you keep them? And really, you don't want them going to the competition.
Well, you keep them by, number one, paying them market value, and number two, giving them an awesome place to work, because change is scary, right? People don't want to change if they don't have to. And what's an awesome place to work? So, for example, every week we do a leadership development call. Every week we have a star of the week. Every week we have, the teams have their motivation calls. So you want to give them an environment where they're motivated, where they feel like coming in, where they're being recognized, because recognition is everything. I mean, recognition, by the way, is more than money, and sometimes. So you want to do all of those things, and I think it's easy to do it. It actually really is easy to pick a star of the week. Right. And give them a gift card to Amazon or Starbucks or wherever, even no matter where they are in the world. Right. So we give an Amazon gift card to our employees in the Philippines. Imagine they get $100 gift card. That's pretty huge.
That's a lot.
Exactly. That's what we give away every week. So it's, I mean, you just need to find ways to make it cool, fun, interesting, exciting, and, make them want to stay.
Right. And in the book, you talk about how to use positivity to create great teams. Tell us a little bit more about that. And this is really what we're talking about, is, you have a positive, great place to work, as opposed to, oh God, I have to go to work today.
Well, let's start with, I was listening to a book. What is it called? The Miracle of Water, I believe. Anyway, so this gentleman, I think it's a gentleman in Japan, doctor in Japan, would speak to water, freeze it, and see how the crystals would align. Right. And then you've probably heard the rice experiment.
Right.
So
and you did talk about it in the book.
Exactly. Okay. Exactly. So you put 2 jars of rice, speak positively to one and speak negatively to the other, and the negative one actually deteriorates very quickly, whereas the rice that you speak positively to stays fluffy and white. It's incredible. Hey, here's another stat for you that I didn't put in the book. But so take 3 jars of rice, one that you speak positively to, one that you speak negatively to, and one that you actually don't even speak to.
So you just ignore it.
That one deteriorates quicker than all of them. Because it's some sort of recognition. Even if you're speaking negatively to somebody, at least it's recognition. Right. So the point is, but positive interaction and positive recognition and positive, let's call it language, creates synergy, creates white fluffy rice, creates great organizations, creates people that want to work there. So it starts with the leader's language. Right. How are you speaking to people? Are you speaking to them in an empowering way, or are you cutting them down all the time? Are you making fun of them? Are you whatever it may be? And you've got to teach that up and down the organization. And if you've got, any like I recently had to let go a senior manager that frankly was not towing, let's say, the philosophy that we have. I'm not going to say company line because I don't like that, but the philosophy, which is, speak to people with respect, speak to people positively, speak to people that, and be empowering to them. And if you're not, then you're just not welcome in the organization. That's it. So make them fluffy white rice, Deb.
Right. And I think so many people forget that, you praise publicly and you criticize privately.
Exactly.
And because nobody likes to be taken down a peg or two in front of other people. I was doing something the other day and this person, I had asked this person to do something for me, and then I forgot. And so then I had to ask them again, and they didn't like being asked again. And so in front of people, this person informed me just how irresponsible I was. And it was like, okay. And, I just stood there and took it. It was like, whatever. I mean, I certainly wasn't going to, but I thought, I'll never deal with you again. And exactly. It was like, but yeah, it was like, really? And more than anything, it was like, was that necessary? No. Now sometimes you criticize if you think the team can benefit, but you have to still do it in that positive way. I mean, it's not, hey, Mark, you schmuck, you screwed this up. Everybody learn from that so you don't do it too. No, that's not what you do.
Well, it's funny because that used to be the way. Actually, I led the same way. And that used to be kind of the philosophy. You almost lead by fear, right? Or you lead by negativity, which should create a positive result. But look, it's not. Gen Z won't take that these days, and not only that, but I just I've evolved and gotten into meditation, so I don't think it's the meditative way, Deb. So.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing is, and it really does come back to how would you want to be treated? Do you want somebody to publicly berate you, or or not? And I mean, I had one of those bosses that, he was a tyrant. And, and it was one of my first jobs. And, part of it was I didn't know any better, but I also knew that I didn't have to put up with that. And he was real big on calling people names, and he would call women the B word. And,
really?
and
how long ago was this?
This is it's like 40 years ago.
Okay.
So, this was before Me Too and, all of those things, but, he still shouldn't have done that. And, and I remember one time he called me that word. And I looked at him and I said, that's your one time. You do it again and I own your company. And nice. He never called me, and you could see that there were times where he was, but he'd pause. But yeah, it was like, dude, no, that's just, but we've all either, if we've not been there, we've seen examples of that. Right. And it's like, no, treat people with respect. And you talk about that in the book, and more importantly, one of the things you really talk about, and I love this part, was treating yourself with respect, you know, and from a health perspective, from a mental health perspective. I mean, you mentioned meditation. There are so many things that we should be doing for ourselves that we don't. And so talk to us a little bit more about that, because I really love that section in the book.
Well, I'm going to say, first off, let's say general population, I'll give a number. 95% of the population is glued to their television, their iPhone,
my phone,
their social media, and it's filled with, can you call it misinformation, fear, blah, blah, blah. Look, I'm in the media business. Exactly. Negative. I'm in the media business. I understand that, my job is to get a click. That's what it is.
Right.
Their job is to sell a newspaper, sell a magazine, sell a subscription.
Get your attention.
Exactly. Get attention. So what's the best way to get attention? Fear. Right.
Oh yeah. So, I'm an old PR person. If it bleeds, it leads.
You understand. So now you understand, then that leads me to believe that probably 99.999% of media is, I hate using the word fake news, but it's pretty much fake news, and it's designed to get a click or get a sale or get a
and maybe reaction. It's just a misleading headline that then gives the right information or whatever. But
it emits, or it results in an emotion that they want. So first of all, the first thing is definitely cut the news, cut the don't even listen to mainstream media whatsoever, because that's going to cloud your vision. That's going to get you probably in a negative state, definitely in a negative state. That's number one. So I talk a lot about in the book, I talk a lot about mental health. So I talk a lot about meditation. So for example, I went all in crazy to an event called Vipassana, which is a 10-day meditation retreat. And that was transformational, because if you remember, we were talking about, bosses that lead with negativity and lead with sort of fear. I was that. And then this event, 10 days of, silence and whatever we did in the meditation really taught me that that's not the way to lead. Not leading with negativity is not the way. Leading with, positivity and vision and mission, and that's the way to lead. So, mental health and in meditation will put you as the leader in the right space. Right. And then you get into supplementation and nutrition. So I'll give you a quick story around that. So, when I first moved to Montreal in 2001, myself and the main founder and the CEO, we'd go to lunch every single day. And every single day we'd have a huge lunch and a dessert, bar none.
And maybe an adult beverage or two.
Yeah, we didn't do that, but we definitely
you had a lot of calories at that lunch.
Exactly. So what do you think happened when I got back to my desk? Crash time.
Yeah, because the sugar in your body went.
Exactly. So, my energy levels going, waking up in the morning, let's call it 8 on 10. Then right after lunch, it crashed down to 2 on 10. So learning to have your energy at a 10 on 10 all day long, because you're doing the right thing with nutrition, doing the right thing with supplementation, doing the right thing with your brain.
Right.
So if you're 10 on 10 all day long, you're definitely a heck of a lot more apt to get lucky or to get successful than if you're 2 on 10 on energy. And that goes for, let's say, alcohol or drugs or whatever. So for example, if I watch, I like football, I like sports, but if I go to the bar on Sundays and get hammered on a Sunday night, what do you think my energy level is going to be on Monday morning?
Not very good.
Exactly. What do you think my headspace and my brain, that hangover, right? Or that headache, you're not going to be like, if you want to be a leader, you can watch the game. I don't care about that. But if you're drinking on a Sunday, there's a good chance you're not going to have a successful business. That's just my kind of take on it. So,
well, and of course there's a difference between a beer and a 6-pack.
Right. I'm not saying you can't. Look, I have a couple of drinks a week, whatever. I'm not saying don't drink, but I am saying if you wake up with a hangover more than 2, 3, 4 times a week, then chances are you're not going to be successful at the top of your game. So.
And also with what you're eating. It's that's one thing about the pandemic. I mean, I used to eat out a lot. Because I'd be out and about. Now I don't network out in person anymore. So I'm not out and about. So I'm not stopping at those awful, nasty, which I love, fast food places. And so I go home, I have, still might not be 100% healthy, because vegetables. But it's better than, before the pandemic, where I would have fast food maybe 3 times a week, at least, if not more. I can count on one hand the number of times in the last 2.5 years I've been to Starbucks. And I used to go a couple of times a week. And I had one of the high caffeine, high sugar, high all sorts of things drinks. Not doing that. I mean, it's just all of those things that, we love that aren't good for us.
Did you also find that your bank account probably grew a little bit as well?
Oh, my accountant was thrilled. She's like, "What the heck? You're not spending any money." I said, "No." Because I'm not, they're gone where the what you paid to attend, whatever the business networking thing was, all of those things. Now, what I lost out on was the mileage, because, I used to drive sometimes 3,000 miles a year, and that dropped to like 150, So I was like, oh, bummer. But yeah, it was very interesting, to not be doing that. And I think when we are preparing our own food, it is at least a little bit healthier, and then.
Well, if you focus on it and you learn about nutrition, it could be a lot bit healthier.
Yep. Oh yeah, I know. And like I said,
and there's a book, Deb. There's a book that lays out, proper.
Right. Yeah. So, and it really is. It's not all that complicated. And I think that's the message that we want to say is, to be healthy, both physically and mentally. It's not that difficult. Everybody now, for many people now, we've got at least an extra hour in our day because we're not commuting to wherever. What did you do? What have you done with that hour? Are you working out? Are you sleeping in? Which might not be a bad thing. I mean, if you were getting up at the crack of dawn, now you're not doing that. But yeah, what are you doing with that hour? Are you listening to podcasts? And all of those things.
Are you listening to the Power Hour is the question.
I know, got to be listening to the Business Power Hour. But yeah, it just kind of is, if you want to do it, you'll do it. I mean, that's the thing.
Absolutely. I agree. And that's what my book's all about, Deb. So thank you for plugging that.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that, because it is called the Lucky Formula. Mm-hmm. So luck, really? I thought that this was supposed to be hard work.
Well, you see my last name, Lachance or Lachance.
Lachance. Mm-hmm.
That means luck in French, by the way. So I've been lucky my whole life.
Yeah, so you were born lucky.
Exactly. So you can interchange in, luck equals success. Actually, it's interchangeable. But the lucky formula itself is basically internal mastery plus external mastery plus action equals luck. So that's mastery. So I plus E plus A equals luck. And what does that mean? Internal mastery, like we said, your thoughts, your narrative, how you speak to people.
How you speak to yourself.
How do you speak to yourself? Do you wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, this is going to be a terrible day," and you're a horrible person, or do you look in the mirror and say, "This is going to be an awesome day, and I'm going to crush this day, and I'm amazing"? So that's that's kind of the internal side. There's 10 internal facets. The external stuff we touched on, some of them being nutrition, being supplementation, we didn't talk about working out, but are you getting out there, at least walking?
Right.
Are you walking your 5 to 10,000 steps a day? Are you are you up in the morning? Are you meditating? You do things like that are, so are you maximizing your internal, masterizing yourself internally, mastering yourself externally, and then taking action. And what does action mean? That means, if you see my bookshelf here, are you, feeding yourself with media, or are you feeding yourself with, books like, for example, Net Worth or Tell to Win or Can't Hurt Me or whatever? I can go down the list. So that's what the Lucky Formula is all about. It's all about stacking those things in your favor, and then it creates success and it creates luck. I think it's a great formula for anybody that wants to be successful in business.
Yeah, and I mean, it really is saying that we create our own luck. But it's not, that we're thinking, okay, I'm going to go play the lottery in order to, and I mean, I always find that interesting when people are, when say, lottery gets really high. people are like, oh my God, I'm going to go because this is going to make my life. No, and then of course, what happens is you see so many people who get that money and then lose it. Bad
I mean, what's the
investments.
percentage? 90% of them,
I
or
know it's
maybe
some
more than that,
huge
lose it all
amount.
back.
And of course, part of it is all of a sudden they've got family they never knew about, and all sorts of things. But yeah, they get lucky and they don't know what to do with it because they don't have that strong foundation and that framework before they, which, it'd be great to win the $1 million or, the 400 million or whatever it is. But yeah, if you don't have that foundation before then, it's not going to make any difference.
Oh, you're right. You're 100% right. So anyway, so luck is all about putting in the effort. That's what it is.
Right. Well, oh my gosh, Mark, we've only got a couple minutes left. And so, tell people a little bit more about you. What are the services and things that you provide? And more importantly, how do people connect with you?
Okay. So I can tell you that I want to give all your listeners a free gift. And the gift is the Lucky Quiz.
Okay.
And you can, Deb and I expect you to take this quiz as well,
Mm-hmm.
or the Lucky Assessment, call it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a series of questions that basically helps us generate a lucky score for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's on a scale of 0 to 100,
Mm-hmm.
and it gives you tips and tricks on how to get luckier or get more successful in life.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find that at theluckyformula.com/quiz.
Okay.
Again, theluckyformula.com/quiz. And it's pretty cool to find out how lucky you actually are. Mm-hmm. And so that's one area, and you can obviously find out a lot about the book.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to my website, marklachance.com. So you see my name on the screen right there, marklachance.com. And then you can find me on Instagram at Mr. Lucky Official on Instagram. And we're in, like I said, we're in the digital marketing space where I actually didn't say what verticals we're in. So we're heavily focused on lending, on insurance, on education, on we're getting into auto warranty and things like that. So we're driving traffic to very large verticals. And if you're in any of those spaces, we'd love to hear from you.
Right. And it's, let's see, I have to look here, maxi.media.
That's correct. The website is maxi.media. So maxy.media.
Right. And no .com, no.
No .com, just
media.
.media. That's right.
I know it's confusing when they've added all of these things, but it works perfect, in many cases. So yeah, maxi.media. And I love looking at the picture of your team. You've got, a great group of folks.
Oh, that's such an old picture. That's about 3 or 4 years old. If we took a picture now, it'd be 300 people. So.
Oh yeah. Because there's only, maybe 10, 15 people in that. That's right.
Picture. That just shows you how we blitzscaled over the years, Deb. There you go.
I love it. I love it so much. Well, this has been so much fun, and we need to do it again because this is such great information. It'd be fun to actually, find out from people, when they take the lucky quiz, what did they find out? But yeah, so until then though, do you have any final thoughts for everybody?
Well, look, final thoughts are, if you're looking at the financial markets, if you're looking at inflation, if you're looking at, what's happening around us, I think it's probably not positive what's about to happen to the economy, but I will give you a positive. If you're taking what I've written about in my book or, what we discussed in this call, and you're putting it in action, opportunities will always come about. So for the hustler or for the person that, wants to succeed, there's going to be plenty of opportunities to succeed. So you said something, you're like, over the last 2.5 years, it was difficult to hire people, or it was, you would get, different mindsets. Well, I think that's about to change. So if your mindset's in the right way and you want to crush it, I really think you can, and more so in the next couple of years. So study away and work hard.
I love it. Yeah. Like we said, make your own luck. It's not going to come to you. You need to do it yourself.
Exactly.
So I'm Deb Creer. I've been having such fun talking with Mark Lachance. He is the leader and lead investor for Maxi Media. More importantly, he is the author of The Lucky Formula, how to stack the odds in your favor to cash in on your success. I can't wait to do it again, but until then, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.